all my past.
Yes.
And the reason, the only reason, the reason I developed DBT in the first place was because I wanted to help other people have lives worth living, all right? The reason I'm writing about my past is that if I can have a life worth living, take it from me, so can you. Because very few people who've been through what I went through knew how to build a life worth living. So my life has to do with something that says to anyone, if I can do it, you can do it. And I want to tell people that. If I could do it, you could do it. When I was a teenager, I started having headaches all the time. So they sent me to doctors, and I got worse instead of better, because they gave me all kinds of medicine, is my theory. I could be wrong. Whatever it was, they then said they should send me to a hospital. So they did. Not that I wanted to go, but I got sent there. Once I got to the hospital, I couldn't get out of the hospital because they wouldn't let me out of the hospital. And I completely lost my mind there, more or less. That's when I had so many concussions. It wasn't even funny. My brother told me, he said, you were like a football player. You've had so many concussions in your head. And I had all the concussions because I couldn't control my own behavior. So I would stand up and go head first on the floor. I'm going to tell anyone who hears this that that's a stupid thing to do, because you pay for it the rest of your life, which I have. But it did not destroy me, only because I continued to build a life. And so I was there. I was finally, I wasn't kicked out. I got out without anybody knowing that I got out. In other words, and then I talked my parents in to letting me out. What happened next was I went to live with my brother. When I went to live with my brother, I also ended up in another hospital, and no one could get me out of there. My brother couldn't get me out. The psychiatrist could not get me out. There was no one who would let me out of there, because they all said, anyone as smart as I was, this is exactly what they said. It's hard to believe, but it's true. They said, anyone as smart as you, who has as many problems as you, must really be severely disordered. Therefore, we're not going to let you out. So they wouldn't let me out. So I spent my time while I was there taking care of older people who were also locked up. They were locked up, and I was helping them. And I had these old women sitting next to me, which I will never forget. One of the old women got up and started crying, saying she was waiting for her father to come get her. So I got up to try to help her, at which point the nurses started screaming at her, your father's not coming to get you. He's 20 feet underground. This is how mean people were. Not to me, because the nurses rather liked me. But I spent most of my time there trying to help these older women. The problem was no one could get me out. So finally my brother, oh, the food was so terrible, you can't believe how bad the food was. Really, you can't. I also tried to help people who wouldn't eat their own food, but they wouldn't let me help her because they said she was doing it on purpose. So we never had food that you could really eat because you didn't know what it was. So my brother decides to bring me hamburgers. So he would come in each week with hamburgers. So I told my brother, I said, well, you can't give me hamburgers if you're not going to give them to everybody else. So he said, okay, he'd give hamburgers to everybody. So my poor brother came and brought hamburgers every week to all of us. But they still couldn't get me out of there. The physician who was the head person couldn't get the higher-ups to let me out because they said they couldn't let someone like me out. So finally, my brother said, we're going to court. And that's what happened. The only way I got out was to go. And my brother, we took me to court. And my brother told them that he would do everything to take care of me, that nobody had to worry about it, that I was in good shape. And my brother said all this stuff. And that's how I got out. So once I got out, I stayed out. I knew going to hospitals was not a good idea for me. And after that, I lived alone for a long time. But I was determined that I was going to not only build a life for myself. I wasn't really that worried about building a life for myself. I was worried about building lives for others, because I'd been around so many people who were in so much trouble with so many mental disorders that I made up my mind that what I was going to do with my own life was I was going to get out of hell, and then I was going to get other people out of hell. And what happened then was I somehow managed to get a job. How I did that is not clear to me. And I spent the rest of my life, up until now, for the most part, trying to develop strategies to help other people. And I plan on doing that until I die myself. That's really the goal of my life, is to help others. Because I ended up with a very happy life because of my daughter. Once I found my daughter, she then came to live with me. So this is not a biological daughter. It is a woman that I met who loved me and I loved her. And she and her husband live with me. And I've managed to keep a very happy life with them. So what I have to say to all the people who feel that they don't have lives worth living is that you have to stick to the effort. But also, more than likely, you have to find something that you want to help someone with, something that you want to make. I mean, you could help dogs. I mean, it doesn't have to be another person. But you do have to have some reason to stay alive if you want to stay alive. And you have to figure out a way that will make your life worth living. And that's what I did. And that's why I'm here. That's why I'm talking to you. I knew this would come up. I don't know, though, whether my story is so good. Does it fit? Geraldine? My daughter could tell you. How'd you end up coming to live with me? What made you do it? You can't say anything right now.
Si ella quisiera. Es muy lindo, Marsha, lo que estás diciéndole a tu hija y el mensaje que estás dando. Quiero contar que acá están todos bastante emocionados.
You see how loving she is. Other people wouldn't be so loving.